Let me start with something one of my neighbors said to me a few months ago. She's 71, retired 6 years ago, and she told me completely unprompted over coffee on her back porch, "I wish someone had sat me down 10 years before I retired and just been honest with me, not given me a brochure, just talked to me like a real person about what was actually coming." That conversation stuck with me, because the advice that actually helps people isn't the generic stuff. The start saving early and diversify your portfolio tips that sound right, but leave you exactly where you started. It's the specific, lived-in, sometimes uncomfortable things that people who've already crossed the finish line wish they'd known before they got there. Today we're going through 9 of those things. Not 8, 9. Because there's one that almost never gets talked about in these conversations, and I think it might be the most important one on the list. This is for the people who are 5, 10, 15 years out from retirement and want to get it right. It's also for people who are already there and want to make sure they're making the most of it. And it's for the people somewhere in the middle, working hard, doing their best, wondering if they're on track. Hey, I'm Alice from Money Blueprint. Let's get into it. Tip 1. Stop picturing retirement as a destination and start building it like a life. Here's the mental model most people walk into retirement with. I'll get there, and then I'll figure out what I want to do. Retirement is the finish line, and everything good happens after it. The retirees who are genuinely happy, the ones who look like the people in the commercials, not the ones who call their kids twice a day because they're bored, almost universally say the same thing. They had a life waiting for them when they stopped working, not just an absence of work. What does that actually mean in practice? Before you retire, know what a Tuesday looks like, not a vacation Tuesday. A regular Tuesday in 3 years. Where are you? What are you doing? Who are you with? Because the thing about work that nobody admits until it's gone is that it provides a structure you don't realize you need until you don't have it anymore. Schedule, identity, social contact, sense of purpose. All of it shows up in the job, whether you like the job or not. Envision the specific life, not just the abstract freedom. The people who do that work are the ones who thrive. Tip 2. The 70 to 90% rule is a starting point, not a destination. You've probably heard that you need about 70 to 90% of your pre-retirement income to maintain your lifestyle in retirement. That's a reasonable ballpark, but it's only a number until you actually map out what your life will cost. Sit down, and I mean actually sit down with a piece of paper or a spreadsheet, and estimate what each month looks like. Housing, property taxes, which, by the way, have gone up 27% nationally since 2019 and are not stopping. Utilities, transportation, food, healthcare, which deserves its own entire conversation, and which we'll get to. Travel, if that's part of your plan. Any debt payments still in the picture. The exercise itself is the point. Most people are surprised by 2 things: how much they underestimate healthcare and how much the fun categories, travel, hobbies, family visits, actually add up when they're finally free to spend on them. A good financial advisor can help you build this map, but the raw material has to come from your honest self-assessment of what your life actually looks like. Nobody can do that part for you. Tip 3. Save automatically, increase annually, and stop thinking about it. The biggest reason people don't save enough for retirement isn't that they lack discipline. It's that they're relying on discipline in the first place. Discipline is a finite resource. It runs out, life gets expensive, the car needs replacing, the roof needs replacing, the holiday comes and you decide this 1 year won't matter, and then it's 5 years later and the account looks the same as it did. Automation is different. When the money moves to your 401k or IRA before it hits your checking account, you adapt to what's left. Every behavioral finance study on this topic shows the same thing. People who automate savings save more consistently across every income level. One specific move that makes a real difference: commit to increasing your contribution by 1% every time you get a raise. You won't feel it. Your lifestyle won't change. But over a decade, the compounding impact of that habit is significant. Fidelity's research shows that increasing contributions by just 1% annually can add tens of thousands to a retirement balance over a working career. Start wherever you are. Increase automatically. Let the system do the work your willpower can't always do. Tip 4. Know your employer's retirement plan better than HR does. This sounds dramatic, but I mean it. Too many people have money in a 401k they barely understand. They set a contribution percentage years ago, picked a target date fund someone suggested, and never looked at it again. That might be fine. Or it might mean you're paying 0.8% in expense ratios when a comparable fund costs 0.04%. That difference, compounded over 20 years on a $300,000 balance, is over $100,000. Not a rounding error. Know your plan. Know what funds are available and what they cost. Know whether your employer matches and exactly what the vesting schedule is. Because in 2026, cliff vesting schedules of 3 to 4 years are still common, and leaving a job before you're fully vested can mean walking away from thousands in employer contributions that legally aren't yours yet. If your employer offers a Roth 401k option alongside the traditional one, understand the difference and make a deliberate choice. In a high-earning year, the traditional pre-tax version might win. In a lower-earning year, Roth contributions that grow tax-free for decades might be more valuable. The answer isn't universal. It's specific to your tax situation. Know the plan. It's your money. Tip 5. The IRA is not just a backup plan. It's a power tool. A lot of people treat an IRA like something you open when you don't have a workplace plan. It's the consolation prize of retirement accounts. That framing is wrong and expensive. Even if you have a 401k at work, a Roth IRA is one of the most powerful savings vehicles available to a middle-income American. Money goes in after tax. It grows completely tax-free. Qualified withdrawals in retirement are completely tax-free. The IRS never touches the gains again. For 2026, you can contribute $7,000 if you're under 50 and $8,000 if you're 50 or over. That catch-up contribution being specifically designed for the person who's in the window of their peak earning and saving years. For people who are a decade or so out from retirement and haven't maxed their Roth IRA consistently, this is worth looking at hard. The compound growth on tax-free money over 10 years is meaningfully different from the same growth in a taxable account. One practical note: Roth IRA contributions phase out at higher income levels. In 2026, the phase-out starts around $150,000 for single filers and $236,000 for married filing jointly. If you're above those thresholds, there are strategies worth knowing about. A fee-only financial advisor can walk you through what makes sense. Tip 6. Do not retire with debt you haven't planned for. Debt doesn't care that you retired. It keeps showing up every month regardless. The people who struggle most in early retirement are frequently not people who undersaved for investments. They're people who carried debt they underestimated. A mortgage with 12 years left, a car payment, credit card balances that have been manageable for years, a HELOC they opened during the remodel. Fixed income is unforgiving. When you're working, an unexpected expense is an inconvenience. When you're retired and drawing from savings, the same expense is a portfolio withdrawal at whatever the market happens to be doing that day. Debt obligations on a fixed retirement income can create a pressure that makes every month feel tighter than it should. The goal before retirement: eliminate all high-interest consumer debt, build a clear payoff timeline for any remaining debt, and understand what your fixed monthly obligations will be so you can plan accurately. The mortgage question is worth thinking through carefully. There are people who are better off paying it down aggressively before retirement, and people who are better off keeping a low-rate mortgage and investing the difference. The answer depends on your rate, your investment returns, and your psychological relationship with debt. All three matter. Tip 7. Invest with intention. and update that intention as you age. There's an old rule of thumb that says you should hold bonds equal to your age as a percentage of your portfolio. By that logic, a 65-year-old should have 65% bonds and 35% stocks. In 2026, most financial planners think that rule is outdated. People are living longer. A 65-year-old in reasonable health has a realistic chance of needing their portfolio to last 25 to 30 years. A portfolio that's mostly bonds at 65 may not grow fast enough to outpace inflation over that time frame. The right asset allocation in pre-retirement and early retirement depends on your specific situation, how long your runway is, what other income sources you have, your risk tolerance, and your sequence of returns exposure. Meaning, how badly would a major market drop in the first few years of retirement hurt you? What everyone can do: understand what you own, understand why, and revisit the allocation every year or two rather than setting it once and forgetting it. Markets change. Your needs change. Your allocation should reflect your actual situation, not a decision you made in 2014. Tip 8. Healthcare is not a line item. It's a financial plan of its own. This is the one that catches people off guard more than almost anything else. And in 2026, with premiums continuing to climb and Medicare's true costs still widely misunderstood, I think it's worth spending real time here. First, Medicare is not free. Part B, which covers doctor visits and outpatient care, has a standard premium of $185 per month per person in 2026. That's $4,440 a year for a couple. If your income in retirement is above certain thresholds, you'll pay even more through IRMAA surcharges. And Medicare doesn't cover dental, vision, or hearing, which are, not coincidentally, exactly the things that get more expensive as you age. Most retirees need either a Medigap supplemental plan or Medicare Advantage on top of original Medicare. Both have premiums, both have costs. Budget for them. Second, if you're planning to retire before 65, the healthcare bridge is one of the most important financial problems you'll solve. A CA marketplace plans can work, but the premiums before subsidies are significant, and the subsidies depend on your income. Managing your modified, adjusted gross income. In the years before Medicare is a real strategy, and it's worth understanding. Fidelity's 2024 estimate puts average healthcare costs for a retired couple at $315,000 over the course of retirement. That's not a number to be scared of. It's a number to plan for. Health savings accounts, if you're eligible now, are one of the best ways to do that. Contributions are pre-tax, growth is tax-free, and withdrawals for qualified medical expenses are tax-free, triple tax advantage. And unlike retirement accounts, there's no required minimum distribution. You can let an HSA grow for decades. Take care of your body now. It's both the right thing to do and the most direct way to reduce future healthcare costs. Exercise, sleep, regular preventive care, the unsexy stuff that's genuinely the highest return investment available to most people in their 50s and 60s. Tip 9. Figure out what enough means to you before the market tells you. This is the tip that's almost never in these lists, and I think it might be the most important one. Here's what happens to a lot of people who have saved well and are approaching retirement. They get there, and they're still nervous. The nest egg is real, the number is there, but they keep moving the goalpost. If I had just a little more becomes the permanent condition. One more year of work, one more year of contributions, one more year of delaying the life they've been building toward. This isn't a money problem, it's a clarity problem. They never defined what enough looked like, and when you haven't defined it, you can't recognize it when you arrive. Enough is different for everyone. It's a specific number tied to a specific life with specific costs. It's not more than I have now. It's a real answer to a real question. Given what I want my retirement to look like, what does my portfolio need to do? And how confident am I that it can do that? The tool for this is called a Monte Carlo simulation. It runs your plan through thousands of market scenarios and tells you the probability that your money lasts as long as you need it to. A fee-only financial planner can run this for you, or platforms like Fidelity and Vanguard have simplified versions available to account holders. But the exercise only works if you've done the work in tip 1, if you've actually envisioned the life. The financial answer to "Do I have enough?" depends entirely on enough for what. Define the life first, then build the number to support it. Here's what ties all 9 of these together. Retirement is not a reward you receive for surviving your career. It's a life you build, with intention, with planning, with honest self-assessment, and with the willingness to do the work before you need to. The people who thrive in retirement almost always say the same things when you ask them what they'd tell their younger selves. Save earlier. Think about healthcare sooner. Don't carry debt into retirement. Know what you want your days to look like, and stop waiting to feel ready. Ready is built, not found. You have more control over how this turns out than it sometimes feels like you do. The decisions you make in the next few years have compound effects, financially and personally, that will show up in ways you can't fully predict, but can absolutely influence. Start with one thing from this list. Whatever feels most urgent or most unfinished, do something concrete with it this week. That's how it actually happens. If these conversations are useful to you, the real ones, the ones that don't condescend and don't leave you more confused than when you started, subscribe to Money Blueprint. This is what this channel is built for. And drop a comment. Which of these 9 is the one you're still working on? No judgment, just honest conversation. I read every single one, and your answer shapes what gets made next. We're building something here together, and I'll see you in the next one.